All right, so today is poker day. So it's actually a Friday. We're up here in Blackhawk. It's kind of midday, and yeah, gonna go ahead and be hopping into a game. I think the Ameristar is gonna be located right about there, if I can see on the screen okay. And yeah, should just be a normal day. There's gonna be some promotions running a little later the day across the street at Golden Gate, so we may jump into a game over there, but otherwise kind of standard opening, 1-3, 1-2, 2-5. We'll see what the games are and what they bring us. I do expect things to be kind of regular filled, so thoughts, intentions out of the universe. Tide is right, going to be playing well, set over set, flush over flush, and just kind of be looking to get it in good, going for extreme value. Working on poker during the week, studying development, those kinds of things. There was some content that I watched in regards to some higher stakes, higher level play, and professionals that were commentating on the game. And what I mean by that is, as they were commentating on the game and going through their thought processes, they really expanded on the amount of detail that was going in their thought process. Whereas I think sometimes even my own processes, and definitely in others, you take each street by street, you evaluate those kinds of things, but then you kind of, when you go from flop to turn to river, you can evaluate what the strategy is, where somebody might be in a hand, and there's just a greater amount of detail. And specifically, I guess maybe one of the things that they were talking about is the number of combinations and the types of combinations and what they're doing with those combinations. So that being said, I hope to focus in, one of my goals for the day would be to focus in on a thought process similar to that. So going into the game, but that being said, this was some high-level content, some above-the-rim kind of play, and with that, I don't expect to be utilizing that, at least early in the session. Maybe when some other people start rolling in the games and people start feeling themselves out and just kind of want to start getting it in and playing a little bit more, we can kind of go ahead and have that kind of experience or look for those kind of opportunities. So that being said, I'm gonna hop back in the car. Beautiful town down there, and yeah, good luck us, and here we go. All right. All right, so here we are. I think the vlog is going to start off with mid-session update. We were actually not playing at the gates. We were actually across the street at the Ameristar, and had an audio problem. Had an audio problem where we couldn't record everything that we wanted to for starting the session. So we're just going to do it out here and hopefully make it kind of quick. Colorado weather is greatly changing. Let me see if I can get a little shot behind me here. We have a snowstorm that's actually going ahead and rolling in. So we'll just go ahead and make this probably as quick as possible. We still have the session driving up here. It is a Friday. It was kind of early in the day, so we're going to start off tensions into the universe. Tide is right, set over set, full house over full house, flush over flush, all those kinds of things. And that really didn't happen, so to speak. So that being said, we still were doing okay. We were probably running within a fairly tight range of plus 100, minus 100. When we got a little bit below that 100, I think we started to hand select poorly, so our actual hand candidates were not the best that could have been. So that being said, we just kind of dwindled down even a little further. In terms of the actual game state and what's going on, trading small pots, nothing really big. I think the big pots would come from coolers, but actually there's a misplayed hand that we can talk about in just 1 second. So go ahead and actually hold that thought, so to speak, in terms of us talking about it. One hand that we did play that kind of defined the thought process for the session was the game was getting constricted, or I wanted to constrict what I considered value on the river. So the exact hand that played, not to go through everything, we had a run out where we had a pair plus flush draw on a monotone board of spades. The turn runs out spades, so we make queen high flush. There was a little bit of what I took to be a live read from an unknown player in the game who kind of gave the him-haw kind of thing, and I bit
for what it's worth. This is 1-3, so kind of figured he had a good hand. Led river on a monotone board where I had the queen, so I'm getting beat by the ace of spades and the king of spades most likely. There was an opportunity for the straight flush to go ahead and come in, and he just went ahead and called a real small bet on the end. I'll put a total kind of in the edit down here below. He called a real small bet and showed his ace. I mucked. And from that, he said he was worried about the straight flush being possible. So maybe that was the actual him-haw. So maybe I was correct in a certain sense, not correct in another, but it really gave me pause to consider what value is on the river, or kind of how those later streets are going to go ahead and be played. So that being said, we also ran into a spot later where we had queens. We go ahead and open, we get a call. No one calls except for the player that went ahead and limped directly in front. It's a jack high board, 2 hearts. We have the overpair. We go ahead and bet on the board. We get a call. The flush completes on the turn. Go ahead and check here. I don't necessarily think the exact player was trapping, but also as well too, or had kind of a weak flush. I'm really not too worried, but he does lead river, and we go ahead and just basically make kind of what is, I think, naively a kind of a value call at the end with our overpair, and just kind of let him hang himself, so to speak, with the bet there, valuing a hand worse than the just overpair queens on a jack high board, and certainly a flush as possible. We just basically call for value, if that makes any sort of sense at all. But we're still down in the game. If I didn't say already, we were in for 4, down less than down a little more than 200 or so. So we go ahead and add on. We do find a spot, and I think we lost a little bit more, but we do add on for another full buy-in. We did find a spot, and probably the error that I was making was getting too aggressive in my defense. I was defending the blinds as well as the button with almost garbage, quite frankly. And to talk about this exact hand. So that being said, we are down 75 in the game, but everything that I just mentioned, that was probably disaster. We're just going to go ahead and reset back to baseline, try and find our way to use good strategies, good tactics, and get ourselves way to Profitville through that way. So anyhow, that being said, that's kind of where our session for mid-session update with session intro. It is just snowing like you would not believe right now. I shouldn't say like you would not believe. It's not terrible, but it's coming down pretty good. So anyhow, we're going to jump back in game. Hopefully I got some hands to throw on the edit. Go from there. Good luck us, and that's it. All right. Okay, so here we're going to be talking about a hand pretty much where everyone made a mistake, and I think that's probably going to be the most interesting part of the entire hand history that's here. So in this case, we go ahead and have a middle position open, and we go ahead and look down at 8-7 offsuit on the button. And that's really where I think the first mistake goes ahead and occurs here, is very simply defending too wide, leaving, I think, what is a baseline construction, or breaking, I think, what is a more normalized, well-constructed set of ranges, or what they would be. There's really no need to do this, is probably the second point. Doing this, there's no other thing that is going on in the game state that really necessitates this. I don't think we can derive any extra equity, any extra value. All we're really looking to do is cooler off a better set of hands in this exact spot. So that being said, 8-7 offsuit, I think, is going to essentially under-realize what little equity it does have in this spot. We only have one opener in front of us. We don't even have a series of openers or even a suited combination where I think the hand could perform much better. That being said, we go ahead and defend. We go ahead and make the call, and then the big blind goes ahead and defends as well too. So we're off to see a flop. In this case, it's going to be a Jack 5-6 rainbow, all suits. And that's pretty much a dream flop. If there was a tier 1 set of flop textures, that's pretty much in there. So we're not unhappy to go ahead and see that. The big blind goes ahead and checks. Middle position continues through, I think, what is a standard sizing. We go ahead and have an easy call in this exact spot, and then the big blind goes ahead and calls as well too. The turn card comes off a 7, so we go ahead and make a pair on the Jack 5-6 rainbow, all suits. And the big blind consistently goes ahead and checks as well too. The middle position player goes ahead and bets, and I go ahead and continue again off to the river through a call. Now, as I was sharing this hand post-session with a couple colleagues, the question came up why I did not choose to press my equity in this spot through a raise. And I just think that given the middle position player and what I had seen through an ace's hand prior, changing from a realization mode into capitalizing, so trying to capitalize when my hand, I did improve to a pair, but my hand really did not improve significantly. I did not improve to a two pair, I did not make the straight, so on and so forth. I still think I could definitely be drawing to what I think would be the best hand, but I definitely can be behind here making this call. But I am facing a relatively small bet against the pot, and I do have a pair, so I pick up trip outs, two pair outs, and again my open-ended draw is still good. And I think just seeing a river is completely fine here. So that's kind of the thought process on the turn. And then the river comes off a great card. It comes off the 4, so we have a Jack 5, 6, 7, 4 texture. So we have a straight to the 8. And the exact action from the big blind goes ahead and becomes a check. The middle position player checks as well too. And given the fact that I have the straight here, I feel that it is going to be good a significant amount of the time. And if I get raised, it's probably some other form of an 8 that went ahead and continued or found itself to the river, in a very similar manner as I did. And I think it's just going to be a chop, so I think I can pretty easily call off a raise. Not sure that I would necessarily put another bet on top of a raise, but I think it's a pretty easy call. And likewise as well too, facing the exact action that I had from going ahead and pre-flop to flop to turn, I feel I can size up, so I actually just bet the max that I can in this exact spot. So I go ahead and bet 100, and then actually, believe it or not, I go ahead and get a call from the big blind, and then I go ahead and actually get a call from middle position as well too. So $300 actually goes into the pot on the river, and I go ahead and immediately table my straight to the 8. Identify that verbally as the hand. The big blind goes ahead and stands up and looks at the board and says, "Wow, I did not see this. I did not see the straight out there," which was kind of an interesting comment. So I'm just going to presume he had some sort of jack, really good jack, ace jack, something that he continued with there. Maybe a weird two pair. I mean, he could find he could have found a 5, 6, 6, 7 combination some way somehow. That would have been there to go ahead and bluff catch essentially with two pair in that exact spot. Didn't see the hand, but that maybe some thoughts. Then the middle position player goes ahead and actually tables aces for cracked aces, and he just was not going to give up in this exact spot. So he effectively just decided to bluff catch the river as opposed to potentially getting raised by a better hand. So I think the mistakes are certainly from my perspective. We're going to go ahead and be the exact hand candidate and all the reasons that I mentioned why. There's really no need, again, to repeat them, there's really no need to break construction. You don't need to do this. There was nothing else in the game state that would really create an edge or a profitable scenario where I think 8-7 globally would do well. I think ultimately it does under-realize its equity, it does underperform. But we played a hand and we scooped a pot in an exact spot here. Likewise as well too, I'm not sure that the early position of the big button defend coulda, shoulda, woulda folded the turn, but he was getting such a great price given the exact size of the pot. Can't quite blame him for coming along if he had some sort of jack or two pair combination. And then aces, the perspective of aces I think as well too from a bet. He was just going ahead and going for value and protection as opposed to giving off free cards, because again I think he did realize the texture of the board and then finally just decided to bluff catch the river. Probably coulda, shoulda, woulda folded on the river, but again, that's a difficult spot in a low stakes to actually see that fold quite often, given the fact that we do have a structured game, where we do have structured bet sizing. So kind of an interesting hand where shouldn't have gotten in, and then some other players coulda, shoulda, woulda released for all the reasons and rationale why. So yeah, hopefully that was an interesting one. All right, so update from the train here behind me, one of the historic trains that you see. See if I can get this into shot of the camera or whatever. One of the historic trains that you see up here that's kind of on display. Colorado Central Railroad, kind of neat. All that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're just out here just doing our thing. Actually, we're also in front of the aisle, one of the other casinos that's right there. Not sure. I don't think the logo is going to come in, but it is what it is. So try and go ahead and make this somewhat quick. We finished session. Our net result, we are down 3 and change. We were down 2 in the 1-2 game. Hopefully before this, in the actual edit, we'll go ahead and have some hands to talk about, just kind of go through some things. We switched over to the 2-5 game because it did have some players that came from 1-2. I had prior history with them in session and also before. They weren't anything too difficult, and the lineup just generally looked good. So felt it was an okay place to go ahead and get into that actual game. However, we just ran below expectation. When you get flush over flush, obviously the bottom end of the flush, and then full house over full house, the lower full house, things just generally don't work out in your favor. I will say we did go ahead and take a what I thought was going to be a flip against a very live player. We had him card dominated rather than taking a flip against a purported pocket pair. And then likewise as well too, at the very end, we also played a big one against Ace King where we went ahead and held. So that was actually a good thing. On the flush, the flush over flush. So early position, I'll try to make this quick because it is just cold. Early position, not under the gun. Maybe I think it was under the gun +1. Just a great player in the game. Very solid person. Really nice gentleman as well too. Goes ahead and opens a standard open. I have King 10 of spades that I just go ahead and flatten that spot. There's another player that calls behind, and then it's just us. The flop comes out 9, 8, 7 of all spades, so it's a monotone board. So we flop King high flush with an open ender to the straight flush. And the flop goes check, just disguising strength of the hand. I think I'm kind of subjecting myself a little bit to the run out that does occur there. So when that goes ahead and happens, we're just going to kind of take it. But again, I think we should be so far ahead of pretty much everything else our opponents are going to have in this spot, minus the ace of spades. I'm fine with the check. And in fact, actually, with the majority of our range there, we would go ahead and check anyways on the monotone board. And I think that was probably closer to my actual thought process in the actual moment. So that being said, we go ahead and have that check. He goes ahead, and when the jack comes off, it could have completed a straight that's there. Straight with the 10, but of course the flush is out there. The player leads out, which kind of surprised me. I didn't think that he would lead in that spot with even something as weak as a straight when there's obviously a monotone board and a flush that's available here. So I go ahead and call in that spot. The river is a blank. And then he goes ahead and leads 100, and then for what I'm thinking is value, going ahead and raising 100. So I go to make it 2, so he bets max, I bet cap. And then he actually goes ahead and just calls behind and tables ace-6 of spades. So he actually flopped nut flush with the bottom end of the open ender. And of course, relatively same open ender, but of course we're kind of blocking each other given the fact that he has the 6 and I have the 10 of spades that's there. But I think that he correctly, with the call on the river, and the thing that I really like, I think is kind of interesting, I think he more so correctly evaluated the exact spot that we were playing, realizing that obviously he has nut flush. He wouldn't think that I would be value betting worse than the flopped straight flush. And I think that was a good play, and just kind of some of the comments he made really impressed me. So I actually like that. Against the field, that's probably the position I was taking, for the hand that we were playing. And let's go ahead and actually start walking back to the car here. For the exact hand that I was playing against the field, I do like my raise for value. If he did go ahead and re-raise back, I think I would be very close to a fold. Obviously have to think about it, but just kind of rambling out loud as we kind of close out the session. So, we book a loss, but actually considering the hands we played, I think some of the coolers that we ran into, it was okay. The game had enough upside and in many other spots to go ahead and be good. So happy with that. So anyhow, let's go ahead, get back in the car, get some warmth. It is absolutely freezing out here, and yeah, that's it. Do it again. All right, bye.